The PlayAction Podcast is fueled by Picasso's Pizza, where every night is pizza night.
It is a short week for the Buffalo Bills as they gear up to face the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Now they're coming off a win over the Arizona Cardinals to start the season, but now quick turnaround. When we were getting ready for this podcast, Mark, you had an interesting take on the quick turnaround. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I obviously short week against an extremely important game, divisional foe. Short weeks are not good for the quality of football in general, but there are billionaire owners who have money to be made and players, so it is what it is. But I think this is about as, I don't want to say the league did the Bills a solid, but if you got to play on a short week early in the season, it's better to play a team you know extremely well. And the Bills know the Dolphins know the Bills. So that is a benefit as opposed to playing some team in the NFC who they never see. In fact, the Bills just saw the Dolphins, in the last regular season game in Miami. So I think that is helpful for the Bills' preparation, especially the Bills' defensive preparation. It's a harder challenge for the defense because they're playing such a great offense. The same holds true for Miami, but I do think the Bills can, they have basically one day. They had a walkthrough on Monday. Mm-hmm. They have a walkthrough, no pads practice today because the NFL teams rightly, the main thing is making sure the players feel fresh.
It's interesting. Sean McDermott said that during even the preseason, they knew this was going to be such a challenge. So he had some coaches working ahead on this Miami game without losing too much focus from that Arizona opener. But yeah, it's both teams have that familiarity as the basis here of knowing this rivalry so well. I talked to Rasul Douglas earlier this week was Monday, yesterday. A short week's getting me too. Talked to Rasul Douglas, though, about just the short week preparation. He was saying, you basically, like you said, you've got like a day to get ready for a game like this. And obviously there's more days calendar-wise in the week, but when you just kind of look at how the typical NFL schedule goes, it's so abridged. And this Miami Dolphins offense, we'll talk about them a little later in the pod, but that's a big challenge for this defense to get ready for.
Right. And, their speed, this is going to be every week a forward-looking podcast at the opponent, but I feel like fans already have processed the Arizona game. But one thing to bring up with speed, Arizona game, Bills kickoff coverage unit, gives up a 96-yard kickoff touchdown return to DJ Dallas, who it was signed by Arizona specifically for his speedy kickoff return coverage. So that, turned what could have been a somewhat comfortable win into a nail-biter.
Yeah. And speed is going to come up in all phases of this game. Sean McDermott said that to us earlier this week. He thinks this is the fastest team, the Dolphins, in all three phases of the game. The offense stands out, obviously, but special teams, too. They're going to be quick there.
I think that this is a game. Another good thing about playing this game in Miami, great weather for kickers. Kick the ball out of the end zone. Do not, against Miami speed, if they put Devin Achane back there on kickoff returns, kick it out of the end zone. And don't threaten, I did a story for today's paper, position grades, where I, watched the video. I thought the Bills' middle of the coverage unit, crashed to the left and left the middle open, trying to get around blocks. And it was Jamarcus Ingram for sure in the middle. I can't remember even last night. It's a blur here as we get through it. Jamarcus Ingram and another player crashed to the left, read the paper to find out who it was, and left it wide open. And then Reggie Gilliam and Kaiir Elam, coming from his wide safety position, kind of missed the tackle, but they were trying to cover up for a mistake earlier, and then the safety on the other side, 21 from Kansas City, the safety,
Mike Edwards.
Again, short sleep here for us and the coach. He overran the play as the deep safety on the other side. Anyway, the point is, kickoffs at Highmark into the wind where you can't kick it out of the end zone are going to be an adventure all season. They should not be an adventure in 80-degree weather in Miami in September. One more thing to talk about, just to rehash, not to rehash, but impacts the health situation for the Bills. They lose Taron Johnson indefinite period with an arm injury.
Yeah, a quick plug for our coworkers who will do the full rehash on every game. Their podcast, Further Review, is Jay and Ryan. They've got your full breakdown on that. But as we look forward, this Taron Johnson injury against the Dolphins, against however long it goes, Sean McDermott said he's not sure the timeline for Taron yet, who has a forearm injury, but he will miss this game against Miami. That's big.
I mean, if it's a broken forearm, a broken bone is 6 weeks. So we'll see. It didn't. I mean, he on the sideline, he wasn't acting like, oh my God, it's an obvious break. So we'll see. Anyway, he's out this week. That's a huge against Miami. Tua Tagovailoa led the NFL in passing yards last year. So the encouraging thing was how well Cam Lewis played in his place, and then when they went to the dime, that forced Cam Lewis would have been the dime defender. Now he's the nickel, and that also forced Jamarcus Ingram onto the field. And Cam Lewis was great against the run, too. So props to Cam Lewis.
Yeah, I think that'll be big, seeing what he does against the Dolphins. There's obviously, he's got such a versatile role for this defense that makes his preparation kind of, and during a normal week, a little all over the place of getting ready for everything. But now he's able to focus in on knowing he'll be in this nickel role.
Right. The Bills offense heads to Miami coming off a pretty good opening performance against Arizona. They scored 34 points, should have been 38 because they had a touchdown taken off the board when Josh Allen scored on what would have been his third rushing touchdown of the game. Anyway, they go down to Miami against a Dolphins team that beat Jacksonville 20-17, held Jacksonville to only 17 points. Katherine, what stands out for the Bills offense right now?
Yeah, so I wrote after the first game about the receiving core and kind of getting our first look at them, and I'm excited now to get a second look at them. This is something that was a storyline all off season, and we got to see that first taste on Sunday against Arizona of just what it's actually going to look like. Josh Allen connected with 9 different guys when you look at counting in running backs, tight ends too. He was really spreading the ball around, and I think if they're able to do that against Miami, I mean, different defense for sure, but I think they want to continue to be effective the way they pass it around. That phrase, everybody eats, they actually made it happen on their first game. So now it's, can you continue that? Who steps up too? Khalil Shakir was saying they know not everyone can have a 200-yard game. Leading receiver Keon Coleman had 51 yards. So it wasn't that anyone was so outperforming the rest of the receiving core, but it was more Josh Allen threw for 232 yards amongst all those guys.
No doubt. Miami gives up 17 points in a game that, Jacksonville had to be kicking themselves. Etienne fumbles at the 3-yard line, fumbles into the end zone. Miami recovers in the end zone. This is a span of 3 minutes. He fumbles. They would have gone up 21-3. Let's see, whatever. Anyway, he fumbles. The next play, Miami throws an 80-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. The next drive, Jacksonville goes for it on 4th and 1 from their own 30-yard line. They run a wide, long developing run to Etienne to the left sideline. Miami strings it out. Boom, boom, boom. The game gets away from the Jacksonville offense. Miami defense. Jalen Ramsey is their elite lockdown corner. He did, I will say, Jacksonville beat him for a quote-unquote touchdown, a deep ball to the rookie speedster, Brian Thomas. It was a Ramsey pass interference in the end zone. But normally the Bills aren't going to get much off of Jalen Ramsey on one side of the field.
They've got a familiar foe over there, too, and Jordan Poyer at safety now. I think that'll be an interesting matchup to see just from, all that he did for Buffalo. Now he is on their rival. So they've got Jordan Poyer, Javon Holland.
Good safety tandem. Yep.
Yeah. So I think just seeing kind of what this offense is able to do against the Miami defense will be really interesting.
And, I think one thing, Jacksonville didn't have the ball a lot. I think it's a new coordinator for the Dolphins. Anthony, they let Vic Fangio go, which I thought was a bad omen for Miami. Anyway, they hired Anthony Weaver from the Baltimore Tree. Everybody hired from the Baltimore Tree this offseason because they were the number one defense in yards, points, and sacks. I think you do not want to get into you don't want to get bad down and distances against them. I do think their pass rush is to be respected. I do think you would like to run the ball a little bit on them, and that's something we expected to see from the Bills. James Cook got 22 touches. Keep in mind, last year, only 14 touches a game under Ken Dorsey, 20 touches a game under Joe Brady. The second half of the season, he got 22 touches for 103 yards. The run game was really good. I'm not saying that it should be a total run-heavy attack, but I think the run game is important, if for nothing else, to keep Tua and Tyreek Hill off the field.
Yeah, that'll be key. Just, the longer you can keep that Miami offense. You mentioned before how quickly they can flip a game.
Right.
So I think sustaining drives will be really critical.
And another thing about the Miami defense, they couldn't pay Christian Wilkins, their superstar defensive tackle, who caused the Bills and everybody problems. So they take a little bit of a hit there. Now, they did sign Calais Campbell, who is borderline Hall of Famer. I hate to throw that term around. 38 years old. He just turned 38, September 1st. He played good. He had, I think, 38 snaps against Jacksonville. He is still playing good. He's not as good as Christian Wilkins, but he is tough. They can't play when he's out of the game. Run on them, and you can't fool him. Jacksonville tried to run a bootleg run. He was all over it. 13-yard sack of Trevor Lawrence. So Calais Campbell is somebody to watch out for. Jalen Phillips, coming off a Achilles tendon, which he missed last year. He looked pretty good. He played 35-ish snaps, so he's number 15. He's a good edge rusher.
Now, we mentioned from the beginning the speed we're going to see in this game from the Miami Dolphins, their offense in particular. What is it going to be like for them matching up against this Bills defense?
It's, as you said in our first segment, the fastest team in the NFL, fastest offense in the NFL. Tua led the NFL in passing yards. Tyreek Hill is the greatest receiving weapon in the game for about 6 years running now. Miami had 400 yards on Jacksonville. Tua threw for 338. And I watched the game last night. I thought Jacksonville's defense played pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were that bad. So it's all about grading on a curve here. People might complain about the Bills' defense against Arizona, but Arizona's run game is good. So that was a challenge. Arizona's offense is legit. Now, Miami's offense takes it up another level. Tua threw 6 deep passes against Jacksonville. He tested them the deep. The Bills didn't get tested deep by Arizona, which I thought was a mistake for Arizona. The new safety tandem, this is going to be a big test for them.
Yeah, I think you look at kind of how the defense has been revamped over the offseason in particular. These guys didn't get a ton of time on task together. It's some guys who have been with the Bills for a while. Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, they didn't get to practice a ton together during the preseason, from rotating that second safety position, Hamlin missing a little time with injury, and now they've got one of the hardest challenges they're coming up against.
Yeah, and Tyreek had 21 deep catches last year in the NFL, the most in the league, 8 deep touchdowns on passes that went 20 yards or more past the line of scrimmage. That was number one. they're going to take their shots. The other thing that is going to be a big challenge, which I'm going to write about for Thursday's paper, is Miami's kind of at the forefront of fast motion. Motion, not just motion, but motion at the snap. And they led the NFL last year, and that at 68%. Number 2 was at 45. Only 4 teams were over 30% motion at the snap. And again, if you got Tyreek Hill, give him a running start at the snap as he's running toward the sideline. They throw him these little screens. He was, I think, number 1 wide receiver in catching screen passes. They get him running in motion, throw him a screen while he's moving. It's almost like cheat motion, which is what the 49ers coach phrased it. So that is going to be a big challenge for communication on the Bills' side of the field.
Yeah, it's not what you want to see if you're a Bills fan, but just from a football perspective, it's really fun to watch what Miami does creatively, the way they've kind of changed the game a little bit. But I would not want to be going up against that.
And, the run game is one where I think they have balance. And they don't get discouraged by 2 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, because they expect one of their speedy backs is going to gash you at some point. Achan is in the 4.3s in speed. Raheem Mostert, who seems to be the number 2 now, he was number 1 last year, led the league in rushing touchdowns. He's in the 4.3s. And even their third guy, Jeff Wilson, is fast and had some good runs. So I think a big key here is Tua is not Josh Allen in escaping pressure. So he is a pocket passer, and putting pressure onto the Bills' defensive line is going to be huge. If the Bills' defensive line has a bad game, the Bills will lose this game, period.
Yeah, I talked to a few guys on defense in the locker room, and they were saying how affecting the quarterback is maybe the main way to slow them down. There's not much you can do, or, it's hard to do at least, but if they can affect Tua, that helps them just kind of get everything else settled out.
And in the first half against Arizona, the Bills were really focused on keeping Kyler Murray in the pocket, but it didn't work per se because he was still able to hit passes from the pocket. So Tua, you don't have to be – he can move, but he's not a dynamic scrambler. So you don't have to be as freaked out about him taking off or eluding pressure as you were with Kyler Murray.
Yeah, so big game coming up fast, too. We'll have all of your coverage this week leading up to the game, a ton of coverage afterwards as well. So make sure you're reading BuffaloNews.com, subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back next week.
Treat your team to the most flavorful pizza on game day at Picasso's Pizza. 4 great Western New York locations: Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Picasso's. We are Buffalo's Pizza since 1980. Order online today at picassospizza.net.